Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Emulator Review. I am your host, Jason Heine, here to help you keep tabs on all the retro gaming goodness. You know, hanging out, having a game night, keeping you up to speed on things here. And boy, oh boy, do I have a gem for you today, friends. And here we are again in that magical year of 1991. Super Nintendo was released. The original Nintendo proved to be a very successful platform. All of these magnificent games are coming out left and right. It was a very profitable time for the arcades. They are just booming right now. So at this point, you can insert that saying, all's well in the world. And then our wonderful friends at Rare decide to do something again. Now, by this time, do we have any doubts that they can make a fantastic game? Have we forgotten RC Pro-Am, California Games, Solar Jetman, Cobra Triangle, Marble Madness? I mean, these guys even got into Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy. They even went game show on us. Now, these guys at Rare, they were so smart. They really figured out by this time how to take every last little ounce and just pour it out of the NES hardware. The graphics of this game look incredible, and at the time, this game looked better than just about any other NES game on the market. Not only that, the sound was incredible as well. David Wise, again, name dropping, he was all over the sound design on this game. Now, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just very excited about this game. It was developed by Rare, published by Trade West, Nintendo, Mindscape, and Sega, all for different cross-platforms, but originally released for the NES, June 1991. Let's talk a little bit about the story. A Rare employee by the name of Guy Miller was responsible for writing all of the comic backstory for Battletoads. And a little EMU review fun tip here, there was an animated series scheduled to be released. I think it was around 1992 sometime. It was some dudical, radical, gnarly 90s backstory where these teenage kids get turned into toads and then they rescue the queen, to follow the Battletoads story and all that. I mean, this thing was being advertised in Game Pros. I remember seeing it. And they even released a VHS cassette tape of the pilot. I don't have the pilot. Kind of wish I did. I'd show you guys my own footage of it. But it is available here on the tube. You can just search it. Anyway, long story short, it did not get picked up. It did not get published. And it just never did officially make it to the airwaves. It's rumored to believe that this was an attempt to tap into the Ninja Turtle realm. Okay, so the story is basically similar to that. You got these three toads, Rash, Zitz, and Pimple. Interesting, they're all skin conditions. They're escorting this princess back to her home planet when, of course, they get a little sidetracked and get attacked by the Dark Queen. Capture the princess, and it's up to the other two Battletoads to go rescue them. Alright. There really is something magical about this game right off the bat, right when you get going. It's very cinematic. The music's really good here, the animation's real nice, the pictures are great, but to be quite honest, I think that the story's a little played out here. I really do. If any of you have seen Spaceballs, it's one of my favorite movies, by the way. The story is exactly the same. Basically, verbatim. And I know Spaceballs came out prior to this game, so yeah, kind of hard to say that they didn't copy it, but there was definitely some Mel Brooks influence here. Now, here's what's wonderful about this game. It is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, platformer, racer, and action game all in one. That is what's different here. The first of its kind, the first game I'd ever play that combined so many different elements that made it very unique. The fighting mechanics are awesome, and they're just so easy. I love there's only two buttons. One is attack and one is jump. It was almost like they had little mini finishing moves at the end. After you sucker punch the snot out of them, you either finish them off with a big old fat blow with a huge fist, or a military boot comes out. You can hammer these guys into the ground, kick them a few times. I mean, it's just a really, really cool concept. And the sound effects during this really made you feel like you were doing some damage. It was very nice. I spent countless days just taking out aggression playing this game. It was wonderful. You're also able to grab a few weapons to help you out, like a pole here. I think it's a leg off that tall, whatever you call it, thing. But even when you finish the first level, the first boss there, it's a very interesting fight. The camera angle changes to where you're viewing out of the robot. You have to throw its own balls back at it. You like that one, do you? You hit it like 3 or 4 times and then it's toast, but it's a very interesting concept. And when you first play this game, it's actually kind of difficult. I remember trying to figure out what to do. It took me a little while to figure it out, but now onto the second level, which is one of my favorite levels. And I'm glad that they put it second, because after this one, good luck getting any further. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they have all these crows and these birds that are on the sides. They have all these very interesting enemies that you have to fight. And I always loved it. You hit that crow right there with the big beak, and then you use his beak like a sword, basically, just to whip the snot out of all these crows, and I love doing it. And if you can time it right, you'll eventually get enough points to where it will award you an extra life. Pretty nice. And now on to the dreaded third level, the speeder race. And I'll tell you, this level looks awesome. You really do feel like you're inside of a brain here. This level starts out cool. You're fighting these enemies, you know, you're punching them in the ground, you're doing your duties, you know. Then you hit the speeder and you think, oh, this is going to be awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, it is hard as hell. Even today, I have a problem getting through it. Now, I could invest a lot of time, just master it and go through it, but come on, man, it is so difficult. Now, amongst many Nintendo fans and Nintendo game players, this game is regarded as one of the hardest games out there. With good reason, I'm right with them on it. That's hard. If you're lucky to get through this, the game just gets harder too. Now, there are a few places in the game that allow you to skip through a few levels, and I recommend using them just because it's so hard. There's one at the very beginning of the game, and then there's one in this speeder race. I believe it's the 10th obstacle. Aim for it. There's a little warp zone behind it. I'll show it right here. But going back to these jumps, it's just so weird because sometimes your ship shows up on the ground and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't even move the controller. I don't do anything different than I normally have. And it's kind of hit and miss, really. The physics on it are a little messed up with the jumps. Like right here when you have to jump for yourself, like right there. Look, I just jumped. I mean, I didn't do anything different. You have to try to find your shadow of the ship on the ground and then land it. It's very, very difficult. And I'm telling you, if you're a young kid playing this, unless you got some, you got nothing better to do and you're just crazy about games, you're turning it off. You're moving on. But either way, that's what I did. I actually played through level 1, 2, and got here to 3, and then that's it. I just turned it off because it's just too hard. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to skip through because I'm a noob, and I'm going to move on to 2 levels ahead. Oh, great. I go from a ship to a surfboard. Just what I want to do. There's these crazy logs all over the place, going up and down. Now, I know, games aren't supposed to be easy. Some are, some aren't. Depends on the player's skill level. But this game is very, very hard. And for any new players, even today, it's a frustrating, pain in the ass challenge to get through. Now, don't get me wrong at all. I absolutely love this game, and I still play it. Just keep in mind that you're going to get your butt kicked, and that's all good. Alright, so this game did spawn a whole bunch of different ports. I'll do them in order of release. Ported to the Amiga in 1992, the Genesis, Mega Drive, Game Gear, and Game Boy all were treated to this game in 1993. A lot happened in 1993. Also was released Battletoads and Double Dragon, which was a crossover game that was released for the Mega Drive, Genesis, Super NES, and Game Boy. Also late 93 and early 94, Battletoads and Battle Maniacs was released for the Super NES and the Master System. So there spawned a lot of games here, and I have to say, in my personal opinion, the Genesis port is actually really, really nice. I enjoyed playing this game on a 16-bit console. Colors look really nice and well polished. They did a good job on it. Now the Game Boy port, well, you see, it's the Game Boy port. Now the Battletoads and Double Dragon port, although it is a different styled game, I think this is the weakest link out of the whole series here. The character sprites are so small, the fighting mechanics are really laggy and slow and groggy. It just looks kind of childish in a way. So that port doesn't really get high rankings with me. Someone was using their brain though, thinking about the Double Dragon, sneaking them in there, trying to make a buck on that. Interesting. Now, Battle Maniacs, here we go. Redeem yourselves. The characters are nice and large, they look good, the fighting is spot on, the controls are nice and tight. Everything works really well. I think you guys all should give this one a shot. This is a fantastic game. But then in 1994, they said, okay, look at this. We need to come out with an arcade port of this. So they came out with an arcade port of this, which I think is the cream of the crop for Battletoads. Published by Electronic Arts, look at that awesome old school EA logo. Love it. The arcade game allowed all 3 Toads to play at once. This is the first time we saw this. And I think it was a similar story, go beat down the queen and rescue the princess. But this game is seriously hardcore. A ton more violence. We have the introduction of blood now, decapitation of limbs, upchucking of vomit. I mean, in most cases, you can slam an enemy into a big pile of blood. Or sometimes there'll be limbs flying everywhere. And in the arcades, we loved this. Alright, so I've run out of time here, but I wanted to bring this out. I wanted to show everyone Battletoads, done by Rare. Fantastic franchise. This is an incredible game. If you get a chance, please pick it up. This game brought us a lot of things, a lot of firsts. I do, however, feel it is extremely difficult, regarded as probably the hardest game on the Nintendo platform. So, the EMU review grade for Battletoads.
This game gets an A-.
I feel like that's a pretty fair grade. I don't want to make enemies with any toads, I don't want to have a military boot imprint on my ass, you know what I mean?